right, so our big question for today is, what is the constant of proportionality? What does that word mean? Here is the fancy definition. The constant value of the ratio of two proportional quantities x and y, usually written y equals kx, where k is the factor of proportionality. I'm going to read that again. The constant value of the ratio of two proportional quantities x and y, usually written y equals kx, where k is the factor of proportionality. I don't know about you, but when I read this is how I feel. I feel very sad and worried because I really don't understand a lot of the things that are being said here. There's a lot of confusing words, and I think that I'll understand it better if I make up my own definitions. In other words, how much you multiply the x unit to get the y unit. That's the constant of proportionality, that number that you multiply one unit by to get the other unit. So, for example, we've got two fractions that are equal. They are a proportional relationship. And I know this because I can multiply 1 times 2 and get 2, and 4 times 2 and get 8. That number that I multiply the x unit, which is 1 and 4, in order to get the y units, which are 2 and 8, that number that I always multiply them by is 2. So the constant of proportionality here is 2. Another way that I could look at it is by looking at unit rate. Constant of proportionality is the exact same number as the unit rate, except it's not written as a fraction and it doesn't include units. It's not written as a fraction and it does not include units. So we can think about it as a unit rate. Here's an example. In 1 hour, I could drive 60 miles, and in 2 hours, I could drive 120 miles. And so, in order to get the number of miles, I'm going to multiply my x, which is 1, times 60, and I'll get 60. And then if I want to do that again, multiply my x by a certain number and get my y, I'm going to multiply it by the same number, 60. 2 times 60 equals 120. So my constant of proportionality here is 60. If I were to continue this table and do 3 hours, 4 hours, and 5 hours, I would always be multiplying this first number, this x number, the hours, by 60, and it would always give me the y, or the miles. Okay? And that's the exact same thing as the unit rate. If you look, the unit rate would be written like this: 60 miles in 1 hour. 60 miles in 1 hour. We said our constant of proportionality is 60. That's the same thing as this unit rate, 60 miles in 1 hour, if we take away the units and if we take away the fraction. We end up with the same number. So it's the same thing as a unit rate, except it's written a little bit differently. So let's do an example. Let's say that I drive 100 miles in 2 hours. And the problem is asking me to find the constant of proportionality. Well, I could do lots of different things. I could make a table, I could make a graph. Those are some of the things that we're going to end up doing in the next couple of days. But for today, I'm going to start with unit rate because that's something that I already know how to do. I already know how to find the unit rate here. Okay? I know that I want to get this denominator to equal 1, so I'm going to have to divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number in order to get that. So I'm going to do 2 divided by 2. I know that's going to give me 1 hour. And then I'm going to multiply the numerator by the same thing, 100 divided by 2, and it's going to give me 50 miles. So our unit rate here is 50 miles in 1 hour. I can drive 50 miles per hour. And I know that for the constant of proportionality, it's just asking me what is the unit rate, but it's not asking for the fraction and it's not asking for the unit. So if I want to do this in an easy way, I could just cross off my units and I could get rid of this fraction. And I just end up with 50. So the constant of proportionality is 50. Now, notice again, a constant of proportionality does not include units. So you cannot write it the same way as unit rate, even though they essentially mean the same thing. even though they mean the same thing.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.